that's $1 million. He dies. I get the house that costs $1 million. No, there's something called inheritance tax. I know you have no money, and I knew you grew up in the house, and there's a lifetime of sentimental memories attached to the house, and I bet you'd like to have it. But no, you have to pay me 14% inheritance tax. But don't worry, I have a solution for you. You can keep the house, and I'll just give you a $400,000 fucking mortgage. It's a fucking scam.
Can't call 9/11 in detail because you're super informed.
Before the fact.
He called it.
Yes.
He literally called it in the summer of 2001. He said planes will fly into the World Trade Centers and they will blame a man called Osama bin Laden.
We know the government's planning terrorism. We know Oklahoma City and World Trade Center was terrorism. We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners. If you do it, we're going to blame you because we know who's up to it. Or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. If any terrorism comes, it's from this government. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, running the Mujahideen war, and whose family builds all the military bases over in Saudi Arabia right now, and sits on the board of Iridium Satellite. He's the boogeyman they need in this Orwellian phony system.
We know that he said it because he said it on tape.
Yeah.
Multiple times. And then he said, call the White House and tell them this.
Now I'm going to put the call out that you call the White House and tell them, look, we've seen the news stories that you've wanted to blow things up, that you have blown things up, and that we're aware of who the terrorists are if you pull this. This can stop this Hitlerian Reichstag.
There's been a lot of rumors about child actors in Hollywood recently. What do you make of all that?
Well, it's all true.
You escape unscathed?
I did. I would say I saw a lot of it.
What did you see?
I worked on a children's TV show on a major network. One of the writers, after we wrapped on the show, had incredibly inappropriate relationships with young women like me who were on the show. Young women in my...
How young?
14. Was objectively grooming. It was inappropriate relationships between an adult and minors because Hollywood goes ahead and it blurs the lines between what is appropriate between adults and children because you're working with adults constantly.
Right.
A writer on a TV show that you worked on invites you and one of your co-stars out to lunch to talk about another TV show that he's working on. Your parents go, oh, okay, yeah. Well, you've worked with him for 2 years at this point. Let's take you to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're sitting here with this girl who's a year older than you and he starts talking about the lesbian fantasies that he has about you and your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, nothing happened, but that's the fact that he thought that was appropriate. The fact that
Well, that's a testing behavior.
Yeah. And then the fact that later we're walking around the restaurant and he puts his hand in my friend's back pocket.
When a black billionaire and a white billionaire meet, there is no racism because they are billionaires. Racism is what they use to divide the poor people to stop us realizing that they lie about every single thing on the news, that they inflate the currency constantly, they send our money away to wars we're not interested in. Nobody can afford their bills, nobody can afford health care, and you're going to die alone in some nursing home because you can't afford a nice house. They don't want you realizing the truth. When a world can be...
Would you like to take this opportunity finally to tell the rioters to stop rioting? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Well, considering I've been saying that for the last 4 days on Twitter and you didn't read any of the tweets out, they should be in front of you. There's at least 30. Let me make it clear to the people on both sides of the equation, all of my brothers in Islam and all of the Christians and native people of the UK who feel like they're underrepresented. You have more in common with the people you live amongst than you do with these political elites. The people you live amongst love their children and they're struggling to pay the bills exactly like you are. There's no reason for UK, one of the greatest countries in the world, to be plunged into poverty if it wasn't being looted by a political class that do not care about you. The people who do not care about you, the number one thing they want is the different breeds or different types or different categories of poor people to fight so nobody looks up and sees who the real enemy is. That is what's happening. So stop rioting amongst each other and realize who the real enemy of your freedom is. Pierce, this is very important, sir. Please let me finish this. You are now going to be advocating for people to lose their freedom of speech online because you're sitting here pretending that somebody making a video being upset about little girls dying is the reason the UK was set on fire. It is dangerous for you to even push this, Pierce, because we're going to end up in a world where no one is allowed to talk anymore. And it's going to be people like you who advocated for it, and you are a bad person to try to get people's point of view taken off the internet. Pierce, be very careful what you say.
A little blurb update today on Epstein. It was showing a photo of him at Disney. He's sitting down at the table, Piglet's behind him. It's him and another guy sitting down, and this guy is holding this girl, like by her arms like this. That same girl is in another photo with Epstein. They're on the plane. She's like she's sleeping, she's laying down, and he's holding her like this. Then, come to find out, Disney sent kids to his island for snorkeling trips. for like 9 years.
Snorkeling. Holy shit,
And
that makes sense.
their cruise ships made stops at his island all the time.
Dude.
Rockefeller created the curriculum for the entire medical education in the world. And he made sure that only the chemicals he produced are used for the treatment of illness, no matter what it is. We are still working under the same premise today. That's why no medical doctor ever learns about curing anything. They learn about chemical intervention or surgery. Statistically, the suicide rate of doctors, MDs, the highest. Why is the alcohol and drug abuse rate statistically the highest with medical doctors? Very simple. These poor guys figure out over time that they have no tools and that they are murdering and murdered their patients. Because every doctor is a good person when they start out. The first year and the first 2 years, you're really excited and you're really in it and you're giving it all until you find out no matter what you do, the patient gets worse or they cure themselves. You just need to bridge them for a while. And then these poor doctors figure out they cannot help. And all of a sudden they figure out that all these people are dying, no matter what they do.
Did you know that Vladimir Putin, the Russian's president, he's passed a law that any Russian who grows or sells genetically modified foods is to be considered a terrorist. He's even giving land away to Russians who will grow food organically, non-GMO. You put his name and GMO in Google app and you'll read the spiel. He says, we Russians look across at the West, over-vaccinated, over-medicated, overfed, sitting in front of boxes every night in their lounge rooms, eating food that has no nutrients, he said, and we know it's weakening the West. Is he right? Unfortunately, Monsanto is so powerful and so wealthy.
I don't remember talking about masks at all. Yeah, I just don't think of wearing a mask as such a deep inconvenience. I mean, you know, we ask people to wear pants. You know, why was this politicized? Early stage of the infection, we thought this was about coughing. We didn't know the simple masks would provide so much benefit. You get the message about masks to be a, you know, kind of bipartisan, let's protect other people type. I don't remember talking about masks.
At the top of the top, which albums are prayed over demonically. Music is prayed over demonically. That goes out to the world, goes out to the radio stations, goes out to the public. And when you see that stuff and know that stuff, it's frightening.
What do you mean by that, Shane, prayed over demonically?
So rituals, ceremonies, everything to bring, to give light to the devil, to Satan. It's a satanic music industry. That's majority of what it is.
Do you mean figuratively, or do you mean literally you've been in...
Literally, yes.
And
Not figuratively.
Can you share what those albums were? Were they your albums?
No, they weren't our albums, no. They were not Boys Own albums. So that's what I mean by not every music is that. But it was on the stepping stone to that. So you're going back to the 1993s into 2000s. And then if you look at what the music is today, the industry is today, for all your Sam Smiths to your Dojo Cats to your Beyoncés they are so demonic, it's unbelievable. And we can't, it's in front of us. It's something that we kind of go, oh, it's just music. But it really isn't. It's absolutely taken over the world, taken over our children, and taken over everything that's
There will be a movement driven by big corporations to take the soul away from people, to disconnect people from the higher world. And in order to do that, we have to destroy the pineal gland in people. And I've followed the research on that, and amazingly what we found, the pineal gland is the most sensitive part of our central nervous system, and it's highly, highly, highly sensitive to 4 things: aluminum, glyphosate, fluoride, and Wi-Fi. And we are the only country in the world that has pushed these 4 things in the last 60 years or so on everybody growing up here. There must have been an ultra-intelligent group of scientists who have designed this protocol to fluoridate the drinking water, to put nanoniced aluminum in the air, to put glyphosate in the food, and then activate it, spark it with the right frequencies.
A lot of people want to make you feel like you're crazy just because you can read them. You know what I'm saying? People will make it seem like you're over-exaggerating, you're bugging. What made you think that? What made me think that is my body recognized everything you're trying to do. I already know what you're thinking about. I already know the next move and your next move. I'm so in tune with myself that it allows me to be in tune with you. I'm reading you. I know everything about you. I know what direction, I know the angle, I know your approach, and I'm not going for it. So people are trying to make you seem crazy because you're that in tune. But value your intuition, value your insight, value the signals that go off, because it'll save your life, I promise you.